awkward timing, isn't it, that we just did a GoFundMe the past few weeks, and now GoFundMe
I just couldn't believe that timing.
Yeah, I mean, who could see that coming? Who could see that coming? GoFundMe has now become public enemy number one of this online left space for defunding, basically, the Grayzone. And Max Blumenthal wrote an article about this on the Grayzone site, so we'll read some of this now. The Silicon Valley-based crowdfunding site GoFundMe has informed the Grayzone that it has frozen all money raised in our recent fundraiser, quote, due to some external concerns. Our initiative was devoted to providing independent journalists Wyatt Reed, Kit Clarenberg, and Alex Rubenstein with long-term positions. On August 19th, when we demanded to know why GoFundMe had refused to authorize the transfer of funds we raised, a member of the site's trust and safety team, sound familiar, identifying themselves simply as Sabrina, emailed the Grayzone the following statements. Our number one goal here is ensuring that the money from GoFundMe fundraisers always gets to the right place, so we really appreciate you helping us to make sure GoFundMe is a safe place to give. That's copy pasta. That's a generic copy and paste response. Due to some external concerns, we need to review your fundraiser to make sure it complies with our terms of service. Please keep in mind that our processes are followed to ensure your own safety. I'll keep you updated as soon as possible. Sabrina. We have received nothing since from Sabrina. I don't say that Sabrina is not a real person. She may or may not be, but this here is generic copy and paste bullshit. That is not a response to Max's inquiry. I can tell you, as someone who's driven Uber, DoorDash, Uber Eats, Instacart, dealt with tech companies like these for most of my adult life at this point, that is a generic response. The amount in question, by the way, $90,000. They had set a goal of $120,000. They were well on their way to meeting that. They were at $90,000. GoFundMe says, we're withholding these funds due to some external concerns. So imagine, this tells you how sociopathic these tech companies are. This tells you how inhuman they are. Imagine holding $90,000 from someone who did a fundraiser on your platform and not even having the courtesy to email them back a personalized response, because this is not a personalized response. This is, sure as I'm sitting here, copied and pasted from a generic response. If someone asks, where's the money, you send them this. 90 grand, and they can't write you a fucking response. That is who we're dealing with when we're dealing with tech platforms, be it Facebook, Twitter, sorry to say, YouTube, even though we love you. Obviously, we love YouTube, big fans of YouTube, big supporters of YouTube. But all of these companies function the exact same way. It is absolutely psychotic, a psychotic disregard
we still don't know.
For human beings. How can you withhold 90 grand from someone and not even answer their email? Send them a generic response like this. How sick do you have to be?
The warning that we got from YouTube, we never got that explained, and we never will.
We never will.
No. We don't know what exactly it was so that we can avoid it.
In the future, right. If they really wanted you to follow the rules, if they really wanted you to conform, they would tell you where you stepped out of line so you'd know what not to do again. None of that. Didn't. No.
And they reviewed it. Right. And they still, so that means there was a human involved. And they still did not deign to tell us.
Right. Exactly. They just don't care. They just do not care. We've received nothing since from Sabrina, quote unquote. By this point, we had raised over 90 grand, yes, from over 1,100 contributors. The generous contributions from our audience were accompanied by hundreds of messages of effusive support for our factual journalism holding imperial power to account. And now, GoFundMe is holding the donations hostage, refusing to transfer them to us, while failing to inform donors that it has effectively seized their money. The for-profit site has similarly refused to explain its freezing of their donations, issuing nothing more than a vague allusion, some external concerns, to pressure from powerful outside sources. Here is a graphic to support what he's saying there. Your transfers are currently paused. $90,700 and something. GoFundMe's financial sabotage follows the de facto sanctions imposed by Venmo and PayPal on our managing editor, Wyatt Reed, after he reported on the Ukrainian military's targeting of civilians from the separatist side of the Donbass region. Kit Klarenberg, who would have also been provided with a staff position thanks to our fundraiser, was detained and interrogated about his investigative reporting for the Grayzone by British counter-terror police at Luton International Airport this May. Then there was the Ukrainian SBU Security Services effort to ban the Grayzone's Aaron Mate from Twitter. According to a series of internal Twitter emails provided to Mate, the SBU enlisted the FBI to pressure Twitter into banning him and a long list of accounts from its platform on the grounds that they were, quote, suspected by the SBU in spreading fear and disinformation. However, Twitter ultimately raised concerns about censoring American and Canadian journalists and rejected the request to ban Mate.
You know what that sounds like? That sounds like the Ukraine interfering in our internal affairs.
Indeed. Indeed it does. There was a whole segment that we did about the SBU pressuring the FBI, right? So that's one side of it. The other side of it is that Wyatt Reed had been debanked or demonetized by Venmo and PayPal. It's really incredibly scary. You know, we use the term debanking because that's what Trudeau threatened to the Canadian trucker convoy. Here in America, we don't hear about people losing their bank accounts like Chase, Bank of America. But yet, because if you look at the language of those agreements when you open a checking account, as Russell did this week in preparation for his Canada monologue, they can discontinue their relationship with you for whatever reason at any time. And so you can literally
when you sign the customer service agreement, because I'm preparing the Canada dystopia monologue. So coincidentally, I was just looking into this. Like, can they do this here? Because Trudeau did this under an emergency powers provision that they have in Canada. Now, that's the next step of my research. I don't think we have anything equivalent where the government could order it. Because that's really part of what was so chilling. But if our government decided to start wanting to debank someone, it's going to work the same way it's worked with the censorship, right? Given that the banks can debank anybody, they're just going to pressure the banks about people they want debanked.
Right.
The same way they pressure these platforms to censor people they want censored.
All right, drag Mark Zuckerberg into Congress, smack him around a little bit, he'll get the message, right? That's how it happens.
They'll just do that to the bank
He starts disappearing accounts, and they say, well, we didn't do it. It's a private company. He could do what he wants.
Exactly.
We gave him our preferences as to how he should run his platform. We didn't make him do it.
And how much dirty shit do they have on these fucking banks and their CEOs that they could use against them? Well, you know, those were some pretty funny deals you had with the Medellin cartel a few years back. Maybe we need to start looking into that.
This is how you criminalize people too, because at a certain point you debank them, you demonetize them. This is how people have to live with money in their mattress, like the fucking mafia, right?
Right.
And then when their books aren't right come tax season, you say, well, what did you do? Well, I tried my best. You literally made me deal in cash. I heard Jackson Hinkle got demonetized by PayPal. Was it PayPal or Venmo? It was one of those two. But I'm thinking, what if you lose your YouTube monetization, so you have to go to Rumble to make money doing your content, and then they demonetize your PayPal, which is how Rumble pays you out. So now Rumble actually has to send you a check. Like, you understand how you're literally making people live like it was 60 fucking years ago because they can just determine they don't like you. They don't want to do business with you. Funny thing, Russell and I actually set up a checking account for DueDissidence today, and the guy at the bank said he was going to watch the show tonight to see what we're about. And I'm like, well, we could get debanked after tonight.
Exactly.
If he's not cool.
We're already that we might get into Guinness for that.
If you're listening, my friend, I hope
shortest
you enjoy.
amount of time ever to get debanked for an LLC.
Yes, Mint Press News, Consortium News, they got kicked off of PayPal. I think one of them got kicked off of Venmo too, if my memory serves me right. There were a lot of them, so I might be a little fuzzy on those details. But this has been happening left and right recently. Venmo, PayPal, all of these sort of non-bank sort of banks.
Yeah, there's a term for it. I bet some of the smarty pants in our chat will know what it is. But there's a term for these, like, they're doing banking services, but they're not banks. There's like a blanket term for these. PayPal, Square, like there's a term for it. Yeah, so far, the banks themselves haven't done it. In my research, a lot of people do get debanked every year, but it's not they were in a trucker convoy. It's stuff like they're Pakistani and they wire money home and they got flagged and now one day their credit card stopped working. It's more shit like that. And from what I was reading, I have to research this more. The banks are in a position where they can be held liable if they don't report any kind of suspicious activity. So
Jake
they
says
have
payment processors is what they call them.
Is that so? Okay, I thought
Sorry.
there was a fancier term, but I might be wrong. But they will tend to over-report on every little thing, right? Because they don't want to be held liable later if it turns out to be something. They don't want the government to come at them. And of those reports, 4% turn out to be anything. But a lot of people do get debanked that way. So far as I know, the legitimate banks, rather than these PayPal things, have not debanked people for their political opinions. Now, of course, as with so many other dystopian things, our friends across the pond are ahead of us. That was a big story, which we'll maybe get into more later in the week, about Nigel Farage got debanked, and they lied about why, and then internal emails came out, and yeah, they debanked him for his politics, for his political beliefs. I think at first they claimed he didn't have the minimum balance, which was absurd. I mean, the guy's a fucking millionaire.
Yeah,
He didn't have the
got some money.
balance.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, and this is something you mostly see in the space that I always hesitate to fall into the right-left thing, but this space is usually branded as right. They're the ones who are really making a stink about going cashless, because they're saying it's partly to force you into a system where they can unperson you more easily if you don't have cash, if everything's electronic, everything has to go through the system.
Yeah. I mean, that's as existential as it gets for people, right? Doesn't get higher stakes than that.
Please clap.